Welcome to Face Forward Summit, ladies. Busy Woman's Guide to Radiant Beauty. We are back today with another wonderful interview, and today it's all about fire. We are going to talk about how to ignite that spark inside of us, how to ignite that glow, that beauty, and how to be that superwoman that every single one of us knows ourselves to be inside, right? That's what we are. So today's interview is with a lady who is a firefighter by profession. I'll let her share her story. Hi, Abby. Her name is Abby Bolt, and I'm so happy, Abby, that you are joining us for the show. And your story is so important, and you're changing so many lives with your story. So I'll let you share that story with our audience.
Well, thank you, Lenka. I just want to say thanks for your tenacity and your consistency, because wrangling women like me can be really hard. And, throw that in the middle of a global pandemic and oh my gosh, and you're still pulling it off. So good for you. And thank you for doing this for all of us. So yeah, my name is Abby Bolt, and I grew up in the countryside, actually, of California, which a lot of people think that California is either Los Angeles or San Francisco. But I actually grew up off the grid in the mountains with no electricity, no telephone. We do have plumbing. People think that if you're off the grid, you don't have plumbing. That's not how it works. It's amazing how many people think that. But I grew up in the sticks, basically, in California. My parents found an amazing piece of land right around the time that I was born, and it was their dream. And so here we are. And I left for about 15 years and then moved back home to be near my parents. And I'm actually living back on the family ranch right now as we speak. So before I jumped in the shower to come and make the call with you, I was actually out on the mountainside looking for brand new baby goats. So I've been out searching for baby goats all morning.
How fun. How awesome. So tell me, Abby, how does one become a firefighter when she's a woman? I mean, there are women firefighters, but you don't see it every day.
No, you don't see it every day. And it's not necessarily getting like that much. The numbers aren't increasing that much because it's just not really easy for the life that most females want to lead. And people ask me all the time, like, oh, well, when did you know you wanted to be one? Because, you see a lot of little boys, they are 3 years old, and they're like, I want to be a policeman. And it wasn't like that at all. It's just, I grew up in the outdoors with an outdoor lifestyle, and I love sports. So I played a lot of volleyball, basketball, softball, loved the competitive sport type lifestyle. But then as you get older and you look at a future career sports, professional sports for women really isn't that common. And I came from a very small town. So it's not like we were in these big leagues where the scouts were coming to see us by any means. So I started going to college and not really sure what I wanted to do. I loved animals and I thought about being a veterinarian, but then I saw how much college that took. And I was like, like I love to learn, but I wasn't really a college class freak. I mean, I went to school to fulfill my firefighting career, but at that time in my life, it was hard for me to really focus on studies. But I took a firefighting class. It was actually a wildland fire fuels management class, and I loved it. I loved the instructors. I loved everything we learned about managing the outdoors and the trees, and the fire part of it, of course, was just like so intriguing. And I think I was the only female in the class, of course. And then they started talking about how you could get a job on this in the summer. And my mom when she was in college, she had actually driven for a contract company. She drove a truck to the fires. And so she'd always told me these stories about these few fires she was on when she was young. And I thought it was really cool. So it all just kind of started to click, and one thing led to another. And I found myself applying for one of the local crews. I live in the middle of the United States Forest Service, and there's crews, an engine everywhere. I applied and I got a job that I planned to do to put myself through college just seasonally. And next thing you know, I made a complete full-time career out of it. And that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah. And you climbed that ladder, right? You became someone who is really big in this field of work. So, and then it changed.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide to move into coaching and podcasting and becoming a public speaker?
Well, I think my whole career, I was a public speaker. By default, in these kind of jobs, you are, because you're dealing with the public all the time. You're instructing classes all the time in trainings. You're attending trainings. You're on the news all the time trying to describe the fire that you're on or trying to describe fire prevention. So it was always kind of within me. And I'd done some sort of public speaking from the time I was a child. My mom had us involved in things. But I started on a hotshot crew. Then I went to a helicopter where I rappelled out of helicopters. And then I fell for a boy, which can lead us into random places. And I followed a boy to Montana and worked there in fire. And then that boy, didn't need him anymore. And I followed another fire job to South Dakota. So next thing you know, I'd been to Montana and then South Dakota, really following an exciting career path. Because at that time, I didn't have family. I didn't have a child. I was able to just go and grab the next exciting job. And so I did that. And when you're working in a field like this, going and grabbing those opportunities that you may not be comfortable with, but sound exciting, is the only way to really get your feet wet and get a lot of different experiences. So that's what I did. And I became an engine captain. And then I became a fire patrol. And then I became a battalion chief. And really, it sounds like, battalion chief. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I'm still a little fish in a big pond. But as women go, and as far as success in a fire department, that is really, really good. And when you're in it, you don't realize it. When you take a step back, it's like, wow. I mean, whenever I would go to a big meeting or I would go to a large training, when you're like this and all you can see is what you see out of your eyes, you don't realize it. But someone would take a picture, let's say, of the whole class. And I would see that picture months later and realize I really am the only woman in that group. And it's not something you really think about, or, you don't really it's not what defines you unless you step back and let it. So you just keep going. And so I didn't really think of it that way. I mean, my whole life, I've always known that there would be some things like I may be standing next to a guy or in a group of guys, and they would get more respect from the group, or they would literally look at the man next to me to speak to him instead of to me. Mm. But that's just something I learned. It was never something I looked at and I was like, hey, what the heck? I just learned how to navigate it and how to assert myself and be direct. And I was raised by a very hard, roughneck man for a dad. I have a mother who was a teacher and a union president, and she was very, go get them. And so learning from them, I learned how to be direct and assert myself. So they really were my foundation. So fast forwarding into where I am now, through my whole career, yes, from the first year, there was sexual harassment. There was, hostility in the workplace. But when you're 19 years old, 20 years old, you're just excited to be there. And that was not that it was that long ago. I mean, 25 years ago, but it wasn't all over the news on a daily basis. We didn't have yet a standard sexual harassment training. I guess we hadn't had enough lawsuits in the fire service, apparently. But I didn't really know then what I didn't really have to put up with. I just knew that I loved the job and some guys were jerks. You just have to deal with those jerks and move on. So I went through that through most of the beginning of my career, not really realizing what it was. Then I hit a point where I knew what I didn't have to put up with. I knew where to put my foot down, where to say, stop, I'm not tolerating that. And that was like the sexual harassment stuff. I mean, there was a day I remember that's very definitive of, I was a captain. This college kid was working for me. And we were out cutting trees down, and I asked him something very bland. I said, like, hey, can you hand me that saw gas or whatever it was? And he looked at me and he goes, well, why don't you suck my? And I was just like, and it was because he used all the words, and I just dropped everything because I thought, this is the moment. If I don't make a point in this man's life, he is going to move forward thinking that it's okay. So I dropped everything I was holding. I walked right up to his face and I said, don't you ever say that to me again. And I just said it, and his face was like, I am so sorry. He apologized. He's like, I am so sorry. Because I think he immediately went, holy crap, she's going to file a lawsuit. So, but I could care less. I just wanted to make my point, which I did. That kid, never a problem again. He was great. But I think that was one of those defining moments where I was like, okay, I have to stand up for myself. It doesn't have to be an official lawsuit. You just take care of yourself. So going forward through that, dealing with some of that stuff, knowing how to manage it, then I get further into management. become a chief, and realize that some of the harassment or the hostile work environment situations, they're not sexual harassment. They're not being listened to in a meeting. They're having your ideas taken and being presented as someone else's. They're being left out of emails. It's being left out of group text messages, right? It's like all of this little and then you start to look and you're like, well, all the men were on that message.
Mm-hmm.
Why did all the men were on that text? You start to realize there's these other ways of hostility and discrimination that start to come out. And when it really started to affect me in ways that was ripping apart everything I loved about my career, I decided it was time to stand up. And it took someone that was one of our union stewards, actually. He looked at all the stuff I was having trouble with, because I didn't want to file an official grievance. I didn't want to file a lawsuit. I just wanted to love my job. And I loved incident command teams, where I go out and we do hurricanes and big fires and all that. I love teaching. I love public education.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the things that I adored. And they started just taking them away to drive me crazy. And by they, I had a couple of chiefs that were they didn't think women should be firefighters. So it just started chipping away to the point where it affected my ability as a co-parent through, a divorce and going through co-parenting and all that legal stuff. I mean, it was actually affecting my co-parenting time. That's the kind of, people don't realize, these little things in the workplace just start to chunk away. So it was a union steward who, he gave me a call one day and he goes, Abby, I have been following what you've been doing and I want to read you something. Okay. And he said, I just recently took a training that talked about the top types of people who are bullied and mobbed in the workplace. I'm like, well, bullying is a term for little kids, right? My kid deals with bullying at school. That's not an adult term. And mobbing, what's mobbing? People have pitchforks and, I don't, what's that? So he reads me this description. He said, high performing workers, tenacious leaders, type A personalities, high achievers. And he's like, boom, 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 direct communicators. He's like, you hit on every single one of these. Why do you think that these people are after you? You are intimidating the heck out of them because you are working so hard and you are so good at your job. And that light came on. It's like, you're kidding me.
Mm.
Everything I've been working for my whole life, trying to do a great job. And that's why I'm getting ripped on. Mm. So it was just, I remember I was standing out in the parking lot that day listening to his call, and I thought, no way. And then I started to realize that some of the stuff that was happening in my workplace was exactly the same stuff that was happening in my son's school. Mm. I was on an anti-bullying committee for the kids. And then I don't know why it never really dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Billy in the playground is doing in my workplace. It's just an adult level. And it's this adult bullying and the mobbing I didn't understand. But that was you have someone in your workplace, women, men, it doesn't matter. They're popular. All the other employees really glom onto them, or they have a power position where they need people, you need to glom onto them to be successful. So you have that one personality in there, just like in junior high, right? That girl that's she's the popular one and all the mean girls grab onto her. Well, if you have that person that starts to pick at you, the other weaker employees will also start to pick at you because they don't want to be the next victim. And I didn't get all that. And I've learned so much since then. So I moved forward after it came to the point where my car was being vandalized in the driveway at work, where I just had a lot of things being backstabbed and undermined that I was able to prove it all in court. It was all provable, but you have to take it to such a level to get to that point. And I tried to knock everything out at the lowest level. Tried to have the meetings. I tried to go through the union, you do all that. And unfortunately I had to take it to the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, get an attorney, see the judge, go all the way to the end. We ended up settling, but it was $150,000 worth of legal fees just for me to stand up for what was right. Wow. So since then, and I did have an incident in 2012 where I was sexually assaulted on the job by another firefighter. And what's sad is that's not even what I was speaking up about. That wasn't even what I was trying to make better, is actually being raped at work that I just, like we do, we tuck it away, right? We tuck it away, did the police report. I mean, there's still stuff going on with that, but we tuck it away because we just want to keep doing a good job. And that's what I did. It was the other administrative bullying and harassment that was just ripping me apart. But it was that assault that really brought things to the surface, because then you come to the Me Too era. And I got a call from PBS, from a reporter there. And it was when the Me Too stuff was coming up. And I didn't want to be on that bandwagon, right? I didn't want to be a hashtag. And I had been fighting off even talking about it for that whole time. I hadn't told my family about any of this. I hadn't, so long story short, the PBS reporter really gained my trust and helped me see the importance in sharing some of this stuff. Because I liked to keep things, I would like to fight for other people. I would fight for my employees day in and day out, and that was part of my conflict. But for me, I didn't want to. I just let my problems go. And she helped me see how many people needed this help. And then people started reaching out to me. Once that report went national and that news story came out, I started getting message after message from women who were like, thank you so much for sharing that. This is what happened to me. Thank you. Now I'm going to speak up because you spoke up. And, so I know it sounds so cliche, but that's really what started happening. And I went through going through that lawsuit, going through that process. I was diagnosed with PTSD throughout that time. And I didn't understand that either, because, you think that it's got to come from whether it's the military or, a seriously traumatic event. I didn't see what had happened to me as being so impactful, but it was therapists that helped me see that. But it wasn't just about the sexual assault that was the trauma. It was going through the lawsuit and the complaint process and the doubt and the walking through the workplace and knowing that everybody is chattering about it and being undermined by the people you're calling out and all that. I mean, it creates so many micro traumas and those small traumas that it really was messing me up. So I went through, I remember finding myself, the day that I walked out of my workplace, I was shaking underneath a desk in a locked office that wasn't even mine, that I realized that I needed to make a change. And I stood up and I walked out of my workplace and I never went back in there. And yeah, so that's like a really...
Well, thank you for sharing that so openly. And first of all, I'm really, really sorry that happened to you. Because when I think of firefighter woman, do you say firewoman?
Firefighter, we can say firefighter
woman. I think of a hero. I think of just like same way I think of doctors. I have such a huge respect for doctors, and I do have such a huge respect for firemen and fire ladies. So it's just, I can't even comprehend what you had to go through. And I would never even guess that, because to me these people are heroes. So hearing that from you is like putting everything into brand new perspective for me, and I am really sorry you had to go through.
Well, and I appreciate that. And the thing is that the firefighting was the easy part. It is the easy part. It's the fun part. It's the aggressive or hostile human behaviors that can happen in a workplace, no matter what it is you do for a living, whether you're fighting fire or you're in sales or whatever it is that you do. If you have that hostile human behavior or that workplace bullying, it affects everything. And I had a chief that I was working for who was just doing some of the most low down, untrustworthy, nasty things to me in an administrative way. Like when we uncovered a lot of the emails through the case and discovery, and I saw the lies that were being told behind my back just to try and discredit me so that they could push me out. When I saw the kind of nasty stuff that was going on, and I was supposed to be able to go from that office environment, get a fire call, get a 911 call, go out and go on the side of a mountain into a neighborhood of homes and fight a fire, and supposed to trust that leader to have my back, someone who wouldn't have my back in an email. Am I really going to trust him to have my back on the fire ground? And that was another really enlightening moment for me when I realized I had to do something about it. And I did. And it's, yeah, the firefighting part was the easy part, you know, sure, it's physically hard, but it's what we all love about it. And when people say like, oh, thank you, it's like, no, thank you for letting me have this career, because the job I loved, working for the federal government, the processes that are in place there are broken. And that was the bummer part of it. But as far as the job went, and doing fire prevention and public education with the kids and the public, that was just all. But you're in a neighborhood that's on fire, and whether you're saving the neighborhood or you're saving, so it could be, you know, in a wildland fire, it doesn't matter if you have a multi-million-dollar home. It doesn't matter if you live in a tent or a little trailer. That is everything to you. And no matter where we would fight fire, it just, to be able to save no matter what it is, whether it was a garage or a yard or a dog or even a piece of land because their cattle needed to graze, any of those accomplishments is just like made it all worth it, you know, made it all worth it. And it's just like all the stuff that I've gone through and dealing with the depression and the anxiety and the PTSD throughout, because it is not easy to speak up for yourself. Going through all of that, every time I would get a message or a text or a phone call from someone, especially the people I've never even met, saying like, I saw your story, you know, thank you. It eats me up all the time. And I'm just like, that's why. And I would respond to them and go like, you are my why. And especially getting messages from a man would reach out to me. I hear from them all the time because that's my main peers is men. And men I don't even know would reach out and be like, thank you for talking about that. I never even realized. And now that I'm looking at some of the women I work with and seeing what they're dealing with, and now I'm talking to them about it, it's like, wow. And I have an amazing partner who is also, he's a fire chief. Until he met me, he was like, I had no idea that kind of stuff went on hotshot crews or whatever else. He was like, I didn't even know that was happening because I didn't do that. And I didn't see it happening. So I didn't know. So a lot of people are just so blind to it. So that, like, as I went through this, I was like, it's going to count for something. It's not going to be a lawsuit, which if you're a federal employee, there is never a reason to have a lawsuit that will ever help you out financially, ever. People think that being a federal employee, you settle or you win and there's this windfall of money. No, you just cover your attorney's costs. It's not like the private sector. And with all the pain that I went through and the difficulties, I knew from the beginning that I was going to make it count for something way bigger than myself. And I told the agency and the judge and everybody along the way, I was like, I am going to help you change for the better, whether I'm working for you or I'm not. I'm going to help you. And I started a Facebook group that's filled with employees from the federal land management agencies. Back in 2014, I had started, maybe 12, I had started a wildland women's private group for women in wildland fire because we weren't networking anywhere. And that has just grown and been super supportive of so many women. And I just knew that all my pain had to count for something because I can't just do all this and then just go away. Yeah. Like, there's no way.
What I love about what you've done with it, like you courageously stepped away from that and you turned all that negative into positive, and you created your coaching career out of it. You created your podcast. You are affecting so many lives. And as it says on your website, you are leading with fire every single day, and you are teaching it to young leaders, which is amazing to me. So tell me, Abby, I want to know, I want to shift a little bit.
Yep.
What does it take to wake up and be brave and be courageous and also juggle all these plates and be as gorgeous as you are? How do you do that?
Oh, I know when you came at me with that, when you first reached out, I was like, girl, I'm going to send you some pictures of me on a regular basis anyway, like covered in dirt. And I'm going to, and because I am very much about hard truths. I'm about telling it like it is. And to lead with fire, I just came, you know, there are some values that I really stand by and have learned to stand more by and what they really mean. And it literally just, because I've been using these terms for so long, and everything that I have is kind of tied around fire because that's defined really my whole professional life. So I created the acronym FIRE. So to lead with fire, to lead with F, fearlessness. And it's not about, because I always tell people like, you need to be fearless when you're speaking up. You need, because it's not about fighting fire. It's not about being a hero. It's not about, taking out the bad guy. It is about being fearless, and I mean fear dash less. You don't have to be some she-woman. You just need to look at things that scare the crap out of you and fear them less. Step back and don't be so afraid. And in the workplace, it's also not just about you. Being a brave bystander is key. I couldn't believe how many people in my experience stepped back to save themselves, and they wouldn't step up for me. Yeah. They would come to me behind closed doors and tell me, I saw this happen to you. I know that this is going on. But then when it came down to, can you speak up as a witness? Nope. They backed away because they had to save themselves. I get it. I did have a couple that spoke up for me, and they were beat up on afterwards, but they were fearless, and I really appreciated that. So I is for integrity. That's everywhere we're at, right? You've got to be able to have integrity. You need to be able to stand up for what you believe in, stand behind it when no one's looking. Anybody can be awesome when everybody's watching, right? If nobody's watching, social media doesn't work anymore. Like, there's not going to be any media coverage. Are you still going to do the right thing? That's what it really comes down to. R is for resilience, which I didn't think I was going to survive this mentally. There were many times throughout this journey where I didn't think I would survive. And for those of you out there that know what I'm talking about, when I just say that, you know what I mean. Like, there were some days where I was like, I knew if I stayed in the hostile work environment that I was in, I was not going to make it. And there's definitely some days where I think about my little boy, and I have a little boy who's 10 now. And there would be some nights in the middle of the night where I didn't know if I was going to see tomorrow. And I would think about him, or I would go into his room and just hold his hand while I was sleeping. And that definitely pulled me through a lot of. So resilience is just about being able to blow it off, push it away, shove it back there, and move forward, which it sometimes can be damaging too, because it's so easy for us to take these hard things, compartmentalize them, right? Set them aside. But you have to be able to be resilient. You can unpack that later, but you just have to get to tomorrow. And then empathy. Empathy is something I think I demonstrated it all of my life in ways, but it's the complicated ways that you have to learn to demonstrate it. And right now, with what the world is going through, you want to talk about having to demonstrate empathy. I've been fighting for people on social media every day. Like, there's in the government agencies, there are, people that are home teleworking. Some agencies are giving extra hours for them to homeschool their kids. Some aren't. Some people don't have their job anymore. So, and to see people be so nasty, it's like, you need to be empathetic to everybody else, because everybody's life isn't like yours. You need to be able to put yourself in the shoes of others. And in the workplace, I preach that, because until I was a mother, a wife, a divorcee, all this stuff, you don't understand what they're going through. So when you're supervising people that aren't going through that, or even if you're just supervising parents, like when in the beginning of my career, and then I ended up supervising people who had kids, and I didn't have any kids. Mm-hmm. So for them to be like, I need to have this time off for my kids. And I'd be like, I believed in them, and I loved them, and I wanted them to do whatever they needed, but I didn't know what that felt like, to be like, I need this time off. But you have to be able to put yourself in those shoes. And so that's what empathy is about. So fearlessness, integrity, resilience, and empathy. And if you can live with those 4 things in every aspect of your life, you got a good thing going.
Very well said. And I know that you are bringing our audience a wonderful gift. What is that gift? What do you want to give to them?
So I actually was going to give away some of my ebooks, which you can find on abbybolt.com, and my guides, and I have some classes. But I thought about it, and I was thinking about what we might talk about today, and it's like, what inspires me to be how I am, or who I am. And the strongest woman in my life, I got a little emotional today. The strongest woman in my life is my mom. She brings me, Mom, if you watch this, I love you, but you bring me all of my strengths and all of my weaknesses. And we try to figure out how to take what our parents made us you know, and push it into something. And she has given me all of my strengths to speak up, to, you know, handle myself, everything. She is such a strong woman. And she just recently published a book. And I decided, instead of giving away something that was, I guess, for me, I wanted to give away something that promoted the woman who's been the strongest woman in my life. And so I want to give everyone a copy of the book that she just wrote. It's actually a fantasy book, but she has been a writer my whole life, and she's sat on all these amazing novels for all this time. And we pushed her and pushed her, like, Mom, you have got to get them out there. And yeah. And so we finally scared the crap out of her because she has cancer. She's been fighting cancer for years. She's doing well. Now she has grandbabies, and we had to scare her and be like, you need to publish this book because your kids need, you know, before you pass away, cancer, Mom, right? So it's an amazing book, and she actually already has 2 more written to go with it. It's called Bubble Writers, and it's about a strong young teen girl who's gone through adversity. She is living with fire. She's leading by fire, and it's based on the ranch that I grew up on, and it's all about a really strong woman. And so I thought that would be great to share with everyone. So
that is a wonderful idea. And not only you are beautiful and brave and courageous and amazing, but you are also generous. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of our viewers for that. And ladies, I say, why don't we all read the book and give Mama huge clap and let her know how amazing that book is, because she deserves to know.
That would mean a lot to me. Yes, I would love that. It's on, I'm going to give it to you guys, but then it's on Amazon, so you can leave a review on Amazon and give her a nod. That would mean a lot to me.
Definitely. Thank you, Abby, so much for your time, for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. Thank you for everything you've done as a firefighter, everything you're doing as a coach, as a public speaker, as an advocate. We wish you the best with your future career, and we wish you...
Well, I hope you guys come and check out my podcast, because I've got Up in Flames, which is all about going up in flames and not down, kind of like the whole Rise of Phoenix thing, but it's about the workplace and being able to survive difficult workplaces. And then Her Brotherhood, which I created because I am tired of hearing little girls say, I've never seen a woman firefighter. I've never seen a woman police officer or a fighter pilot or any of that stuff. So I wanted to create a place where we celebrate women who do those life-threatening jobs. And so that's Her Brotherhood. So come and see my podcast at abbybolt.com. And I'm doing it all out of a passion project. I just need people that care about it. So
sounds great. Thank you. And ladies, thank you so much for coming to the show. We are appreciating every single view. Let us know how you feel about it. Let us know what you learned today, and we will see you soon. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.